amount of time, but it feels like forever.
Yeah. And it's all good that your friend couldn't join us today. Today's actually National Do Nothing Day, so it's kind of fitting.
Definitely. Oh.
But yeah,
I got a lot today, so I guess
Yeah.
it's the opposite of that.
I literally just drove through a snowstorm out here. It's terrible, but Alex is from Florida. I'm in Virginia here. You said that you're the West Coast. How do you like it over there?
You know, it's California. It's it's nice,
Yeah,
I guess, all year round.
Must be really nice.
Wow.
I've only heard good things about California. Well, I mean, there's some, the prices are high. I know.
Yeah.
Depending on where you live, there can also be like a lot of homeless people. I'm not sure if that's like an issue where you are.
Yeah, homeless is a big issue out here. Really big issue. It's kind of slowly improving. I'm like an hour outside of LA.
Okay.
So it's like even the city I'm in, it's been developing over the last few years. The city's getting more funding and all that good stuff, but it will take time for sure.
I feel that. I'm trying to get out of Virginia. I'm not sure exactly where I want to go, but I mean, California doesn't seem like too bad, but man, I gotta make some money first. I want to afford it out there.
Definitely. It's not an easy place to be living right now with all the taxes and everything like that.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a friend that lives in the Bay Area, just right outside of San Francisco, and he refuses to leave just because the weather is just so nice. Yeah. So.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, this is our podcast. We film like infrequently. We actually had a pretty good streak of going, just meeting people and having them on, having a conversation, mainly just through our own like immediate network. But now we're actually starting to grow and meet people that we've never known before, and hence why you're here. And it seems like you have something to share with us, I guess with everyone, just your project. So I guess that's kind of the main topic that we wanted to really get into.
Yeah, it was through one of the like NFT kind of websites, like NFT calendar or something like that, that I seen your project. And I seen the art, I really liked the art, I vibe with it. But then when I seen the Spiritual DAO, I'm like, okay, this is something big right here. You guys are onto something. I thought like, I seen a few projects here and there that were kind of touching on the subject. And I don't want to throw any names under the bus, but there's some projects out there that are just exploiting the whole spiritual side of things just for profit, and it's just sad. So when I seen the Spiritual DAO, I'm like, okay, you guys might have the right mindset. Let me see what this is all about. And so far, it seems like you guys are actually like authentic about this. Like I seen how everyone's doxed, and I'm like, okay, that's a big key factor. And you guys really kind of really being about the spiritual side of life, because I'm not trying to hide behind any like just random alias or anything. That's huge.
Yeah. The doxing of the team was definitely like, you have to join the team and we have to dox yourself. That was kind of like the rule number one that I've seen so many of the projects do, and it just kind of sus to me. So that was definitely something that Alex and I knew from day one that we were going to commit to.
Definitely, especially we were talking to a few people, and we started recognizing that transparency was becoming more and more of a necessity, and so when Andrew and I started having more conversations about the project, we definitely were interested in becoming doxed.
Yeah, it is a key thing. Like a lot of people have this diluted idea of what intimacy really is, and when you actually start really getting into it, it's not a thing between two partners. It's actually just that experience of complete transparency with the whole universe. There's no kind of, it's like even with countries on our borders, the border where we say where we stop in, like where we start and stop, like that's just a diluted idea. Like even with the earth, all of the trees are essentially like our lung, but the other half that's outside of our body. So you remove that, we can't breathe. And
I can see with like the planets, like there's actual physical space between each planet, but with the countries, it's just like the same land. It's just like a few steps and like a fence or something that we build ourselves. So it doesn't really make sense like why we actually segregate like that.
Even with the planets, it's like space is like, without the space, there wouldn't be any planets.
Wow.
So yeah, with my project, and I actually joined in on this other like this artist I was following, and I was trying to see if I can get her onto my project. I found out she was working on there's only 2,000 pieces in it. But so I joined that Discord and was talking to them, and I just had like this genius moment of changing the name of my kind of Discord and the central theme of the project. Originally it was just gonna be Blissed Out Yogis.
Like that.
So yeah, but I rebranded it to the Blissful Home, because the thing that I'm trying to do is not only make a project that focuses on spirituality, but make an entire spiritual ecosystem. I don't want to just have one project but be a central hub. Not to kind of get into too much detail, but I am working on something, well, more of mapping it out at the moment, which can really help with community building.
Yeah, wow.
Because it is important, you know, like when we come together and really see that, you know, that oneness between all of us, we're all here with the central kind of mission, which is to kind of raise people spiritually. So I wanted to kind of bring that hub where even other projects like, let's say Typical Tigers, for example, they're spending some of their profits and sending that to help with tigers. Even with Apocalyptic Apes, a lot of their profits are going to cleaning the ocean, replacing a lot of plastics with hemp, helping endangered animals. Like, I want to be this hub where, you know, the whole thing with Blissful Yogis or Blissed Out Yogis was, you know, we need to take that action ourselves. We need to take that responsibility. We feel, okay, without us raising ourselves up, we can't raise anyone else. We can't make a difference in the world unless we make a difference within our own heart. So for me, it's kind of, you know, important. Like, I was gonna go be a monk until my guru was like, no, don't do that. Just work on getting me to the States as head of state. And, you know, so he gave me that kind of mission to work on. And through that, I'm like, okay, let me jump into the NFT world. And Web3, and that's been life-changing over this last month.
Yeah. Wow,
so it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Like, going off like what you were talking about, like your goals with the Blissful Yogis to begin with, I just feel like the DAO is just such a powerful way of kind of uniting with everyone. And like, whether you wanted to treat the tigers or clean up the oceans, as long as there's like that group consensus, then you can just do it with whatever money's in the treasury, and you all kind of just agree upon it. So that's why I really think like spirituality and like Web3, I guess mainly DAOs, I guess with our own experiences, they kind of go hand in hand. Where like you're trying to do what's best for everyone, or else, I mean, you could be like a service to self kind of DAO where you're like, we're only going to do whatever's best for us and like not care about anyone that's out, like not a community member. But just from like human nature, I'm making the bold prediction that that's not how things are going to go.
Yeah, especially like we see how the internet has been able to, I guess, allow us all to connect really easily. You know, Facebook came up, and that was huge because we were able to not only talk to people from different sides of the planet, but also, you know, older generations were able to connect with people from their high schools and from their younger days. And, you know, that worked really well. But I see as DAOs, like Web3 is like the next, I guess, iteration of it, where it's not just a group of people where like Mark Zuckerberg is making all the decisions and pulling all the strings, but, you know, the whole idea of the decentralization aspect, where as a community, we can now make the decision about what's best for ourselves and what's best for the community. And I think that's something that will help us, I guess, like raise our levels, our consciousness together, especially because we're all looking out for each other. We're all considering each other as what consequences are we going to be facing as a unit instead of as an individual.
Yeah, exactly. That's why when I seen the Spiritual DAO, I was like, yeah, you guys are onto something big here. This is, like you said, this is the kind of like the future where we're headed. There is going to be a lot of turmoil and a lot of struggles over the next few years, but once we kind of get through that, when all the karmic blind spots kind of bubble up and all the light is kind of like shining on everything, and we kind of fix all the problems, then yeah, we're going to be in a very spiritual age and a very spiritual time. So you know, I'm glad to be a part of just this community already, because it's pretty early on. So when I seen it, I was like, I'm really happy to be like so early on this. That's why first thing I said when I joined was about the divine timing.
Yeah, no, for real. I do feel like we're, at least like mentally with this NFT project and also the DAO, I'm going back and forth for like, I want to like sell as many NFTs as possible to get the DAO, the treasury, and like get that as like going up as possible. But in reality, like I see this being a very long-term project with like the spiritual community is not doing anything but growing at this point, at least like in their awakening to just like what's going on around us. And there's the desire to make a change is just becoming so much stronger, at least within myself. I've just noticed it within other people as well. So I feel like no matter what, the community is going to form, and the DAO is like as like a core concept, it's not really going to go anywhere. It's only going to reiterate and like improve with time. So ultimately, I think it's a recipe for success as long as we actually get the community. And so that's where I see, like, as opposed to there being like a spiritual community here, one here, like right now there's like Facebook groups, all different kinds of spiritual topics where like they're all kind of related to the same thing. I think the spiritual DAO is trying to film that like base layer of infrastructure.
Yeah.
So like a sub DAO can go back, like there can be just a ton of sub DAOs, and you don't have to worry about building the whole community around an idea. You can just like take the big community and slice a chunk of it on whoever wants to contribute in one other idea.
Exactly. And then on top of that, we just open like a suggestions thing, and hopefully, as we grow, we can make a little bit more, make it a little bit more intuitive, or make it more accessible, to where you can propose the idea of like a community that you want to build, or, give it to the large range of audience that hopefully we hope to aspire to be or to have at one point. And then quickly build a community with all the resources that you need, instead of maybe having to build it from scratch. You can reach an entire audience as quick as possible, and really, I guess, organize the groups really well.
Yeah, it's interesting you guys really say that, because that's kind of what my mission was. What my vision was, to do something very similar to that. But I was trying to use the Blissful Yogis as kind of my stepping stone for that. But I still kind of do like the vision that I have, and maybe, off the meeting we can talk more kind of about what I have and seeing if we can do something there, because I know what I have to contribute is gonna do something really, really interesting, as well as with my guru's blessings, because I asked him specifically to make one of the top projects for 2022 around spirituality. Well, actually, I asked to make the best team to make that happen, and he blessed me for a very successful Metaverse project, and I even have ideas relating to a Metaverse that I have in store, as well as even one of my friends. She has an Ayurvedic company. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the science of Ayurveda, but it's like the original in like traditional like herbs that are medicines. There's like 300,000 different stuff. So even when I was kind of first conceptualizing this, I reached out to my friend, and she was like, yeah, like we can do something that sounds really interesting. So it's reviving a lot of these ancient sciences for detoxing, because how my guru explained it, any spiritual practice we do is simply a detoxification process. In some form or fashion, it's just detoxing something, whether it's on the mental, physical, energetic, emotional level. It's just a detox. Because how I view things, it's like when we're born, we're essentially these like big giant diamonds, but we like through our traumas, our incompletions, as we're growing through our childhood, it's like we're dropped in mud constantly, and the mud would harden, and eventually you get to a point where you hold it up to the sun and you're like, okay, I can't see anything, until we actually clean off all the mud and the dirt, and then we're like, oh, we're able to like reflect the sun like in this magnificent way. So yeah, it's interesting you guys are really doing this, and I'm interested in how you guys kind of like led up to even having this idea in the first place.
Sure. Yeah, and I definitely want to touch on the metaverse and like those herbs as well. But yeah, it's like touch on how we actually started. I mean, initially I just got into crypto and NFTs about September or so, maybe a little bit before. I know Alex and I, like, we were actually roommates in college for like about 2 years, and we were talking about how to make some money, how to make some projects, and we never really took a whole lot of action because we were busy with school, but I graduated, and since then I've just been wrapping my brain around like how to actually make a meaningful contribution. So I applied to medical schools and got that out of the way. But as soon as that was over, like I had so much more time in my day that I wanted to put towards something. And so I just became very obsessed with like crypto and just like investing. And then that went into NFTs and like trying to make money on that. But I didn't like any of the projects. I didn't want to just buy the silly artwork and just keep it in a wallet. I saw like the utility of them like down the line, like the metaverse actually becomes a real thing. And these are like going to be our avatars that we like use. But right now the 2D static artwork just seemed kind of silly to me. So I decided that we might as well create our own. And Alex was on board. And my initial idea was, I liked the idea of like horoscopes where the user puts in like a date of birth and like a location, and then they would be like given their own unique horoscope. And we would just take that horoscope and convert it into like an artwork. And that way it's like a synonymous way of like showing who they are, like a little, at least a little bit more about themselves without fully giving away like their identity. But the logistics of like actually creating the NFT project arose with time. And so overall, like, I mean, there's a ton of art that was included with that. I mean, Alex, you want to just kind of take it up over from there?
Yeah, of course. So Andrew and I think he visited me in September, and we had a conversation, and I guess like that's pretty much where the whole idea started to like snowball, and then we continued like pushing the project, and up until like where it is up to now. But you know, we originally had the idea of, you know, as Andrew was saying, where it was going to be like a very unique experience where you get the NFT that was unique to your identity and all that. However, you know, like you said, the logistics, you know, with him just graduating, I'm still a student. I'm going to be graduating in May. Logistically, it just wasn't going to be very easy. We were having troubles with the art and having to do a lot of the I guess contacting a lot of developers and stuff. So building a team was a little bit difficult at the beginning, and so trying to do all 12 at the beginning was a little bit too hard. And so we decided to stick with one, and then from there we decided, okay, well, if we can do one, well, the next month we could do two, and really keep up with the monthly horoscopes and the zodiac signs. And then all that money we could place into a DAO and then use that to start funding other projects that we have in mind, some other ones that community members can also suggest to us. And then as a community, we can make the decision through like a voting process and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say the DAO was not like the initial plan at all. I don't think I even knew what a DAO was when I began this whole project, but we began meeting more people and just kind of like meeting these like advisors. That's like what we call them. And they were like, hey, like now like these NFT projects, they really got to like boost up the utility, and you got to like give away things. You got to do this, that, and the other for your community. And I just like, well, I think the biggest kind of utility that we can give is just like direct ownership in like the actual company or organization itself. And so that's where I started just diving deep into the DAO world with Alex. And since then, we really haven't looked back. I mean, now like our team is like, there's like 20 some of us, but a lot of them, I would say like the main ones, the core group are just all of our IRL friends. And so we've just going from there, and a lot of them are like really tied into like this NFT project, but they're still like learning the ins and outs of the DAO. So there's still like a bridge to gap, but we're going in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough too, one of my like earlier memories of us working towards a DAO was maybe in like late October, early November, around that time. we weren't quite sure like what type of entity an NFT company was when we were still primarily just NFTs. And so we were like, is it an LLC? Is it an S Corp? Is it a C Corp? And after we came across a DAO, and we were like, what's a DAO? You know, and then we started doing more research. Then as soon as we started going and diving deeper into what a DAO was, everything just became not necessarily clear. It was very just overwhelming, because there's so much to learn about DAOs. And on top of that, we're learning about NFTs. We're learning more about crypto. We're learning about the whole entire market that exists. So, you know, I think that's also kind of important to tell everyone that's listening right now is DAOs are complicated. The NFT market is complicated, and take your time to learn it, because it's really valuable information that you can use towards a lot of these new up and coming technologies.
Yeah, definitely. A few things, you know, like my guru has said various things like cryptos are the future. He said that any digital startup will become a $1 billion, like can easily become $1 billion company. And he said a lot of these companies that are, you know, focusing on the metaverse will become $1 trillion companies. And, you know, for an enlightened being who came from a small little village in India saying all of that, it's like, okay, he definitely sees where things are going and has that vision of what the future is going to look like. And, you know, the whole spiritual side of things, it's important. It really is. That's why, you know, since he was like, okay, don't go be a monk, I'm like, okay, how can I kind of do something in the meantime? Because I still do want to be a monk. That's still my kind of end goal. But since he's kind of not in the United States at the moment, where I'm working on building diplomatic relationships and, you know, doing that. We have like probably hundreds of people around the US doing that. We got a lot of proclamations, a lot of congresswomen and congressmen who kind of sent proclamations out. But with him, you know, he's been like the main kind of inspiration for my spiritual journey, and everything he's passed down is like from so many enlightened beings that go back even before Jesus and Buddha was around. So that's why I'm like, okay, let me kind of compile all the things that's been passed down to me and try to share all of that with sciences, because spirituality is a science. It's not this woo-woo stuff, you know, all this, you know, there's so many people, even with astrology, they're like, oh, astrology, you know, it's not real. And it's like, in some sense, I see where they're saying, because Western astrology is so watered down and diluted that it's just generic at this point. So people see it and they're like, okay, what is this? So for me, it's like reviving the authentic sciences. And one of the things that I wanted to do, which, you know, I'm really hesitant in sharing a lot of this stuff because, like you guys are saying on the legal aspect, it's just kind of like, you know, I'm not sure where all this stands, but since you guys do have a full team, I feel like sharing this can lead to something great. So what I've kind of been focusing on was I wanted to be able to start a collection where it has artists from various different kind of traditions who work on it, and we highlight the spiritual aspect within each tradition. So let's say in Egypt or India or, you know, Alaska, or Native Americans, for example, and be able to create a platform like, you know, the Spiritual DAO, where it's like this social media platform, but it's 100% spiritual based, and give this platform for anyone who is interested in any form of spirituality, or whether it's, you know, mental health or physical health or anything along those lines. Because for me, my way of explaining what health is to people is saying that when the mind and when the body are not obstacles for anything we want to do, whether it's even, let's say, let me put my leg behind my head. Your body or mind should not be an obstacle to do that. Or let me make $1 million. Your mind or body should not be an obstacle to do that. And like for my bout on Discord, you know, it's I want to help people 3D print their reality out of consciousness. And that's something my guru talked about for like a month, where it's not just like a metaphor, it's an actual science. You know, everything we've experienced in life, whether good or bad, we have 3D printed from our consciousness. And it's because of where our consciousness is that, you know, we're either doing a really good job or a really bad job. And when we're doing a bad job, we feel a lot of guilt for it. And we have all these blind spots. So for me, it's like highlighting all these traditions, giving this space. It's going to show a lot of these, especially a lot of religious people, that when you actually look at the subtext and see where everything connects, the substratum for everything is oneness. You know, we're unity. We're a growing organism. Like, we have trillions of cells within our body. When we refer to as my body, we're even referring to all those cells and even all the, you know, the billions of germs and bacteria that are living and having their own life within us. Same thing with the cosmic, like, you know, self. It's like, it's accounting for all of us, all the stars, all the planets, you know. So it's like the me and me is also the me and you, and the me and you is also the me and the cosmos. It's same source. So for me, it's like reviving that kind of original science within all these traditions, and like, you know, let's say even the Dalai Lama, go to him, talk to whatever team he has, and kind of build something within a metaverse, within, you know, whether it's a collection like an NFT collection, or like create a whole, you know, metaverse where there's land where they can build something and showcase and highlight and be like, look, this is what we have to present to the world.
Yeah, I like that. I keep on thinking back to like your idea about the collections where like each like let's say ethnicity or like just collective group of people, they are able to create like their own either art or like collection of art. And that's what I think is like really beautiful, at least so far with the Spiritual DAO, is like we've met people from France, from pretty much, I mean, we've interacted with people from almost every single continent so far. So it's only going to improve like our connections to like the Dalai Lama and like the Native Americans with time. I mean, everyone's only like a few different connections away from making that possible. So I definitely have that in mind. But in terms of the metaverse, I've been going deep into like what I actually want to be real. And I really do think we have the team for it. And Ronnie is our designer, and he builds the environments. And so I've been racking my brain about like what is the best thing that we can create, either like to begin with, like as the metaverse is kind of beginning, but like what is the ultimate goal? And I can definitely get into that. Alex, do you want to share some thoughts? I can pull up some images I can share.
Yeah, you know, one thing that really struck with me that you said was the whole idea of like the religions. Actually, when you look at the subtext, it is about oneness. You know, it is. They all say at the end of the day, it's the underlying, I guess, theme or the tone is, you know, be healthy in who you are, treat others respectfully, and just understand that we are kind of like one, we're like one somewhat organism, just kind of inhabiting multiple bodies and stuff, you know. And I think it's silly sometimes when all these people get upset over, like, I guess who's right, you know? Like, why does there have to be even a right answer? Why can't we just enjoy like the situations that we're in and be grateful for that we're even in the situation in the first place, instead of arguing, which in my opinion adds more noise to your head and just gives you more anger. Why not just be thankful for what you have, for what exists, that there are other perspectives that exist, and that there are other opportunities to learn from one another. So I think you're completely right on that.
And that what you said just now kind of reminds me of something Alan Watts said about, you know, there's sticky people and there's like prickly people, but in fact there's sticky prickly people and prickly sticky people, where it's like even with the yin and yang symbol, for example, people see it as yin and yang rather than it just being like one thing. They kind of separate it rather than seeing the wholeness of what it's saying, which is like, no, there's not light and dark, it's just light dark. Yeah. There's no and between there. And that's something, you know, I want to help people realize. Like for me, my ultimate goal in life is to be fully grounded in that space of oneness, which is the enlightenment experience. That's my only goal. Like I have no other goals, you know, making money, cool, doing this, cool, but it's like all of that is secondary. The main thing is just for me to be grounded in that experience and to like radiate that experience and help lead others to that experience. So there's so many sciences, so many traditions out there that have been misrepresented or, you know, kind of taken out of context, because the new age spiritual community likes to cherry pick and culturally appropriate and not give credit where credit is due, which is just unfortunate for various different traditions around the world, where they have passed something down for thousands of years or hundreds of years, and, you know, people don't really fully understand it. So when we don't fully understand it, we're just kind of picking it up and going, ooh, a nice new hat I can wear. Or not even a hat, a nice new mask I can put on and walk around with and be like, oh, look, I'm Buddhist. And it's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
You know? So I want to just say, screw all the labels, you know, the belief systems, the faith. We don't need any of that. Let's provide an ecosystem, a platform where people can pick up all of these sciences and experiment with them. Like the ancient rishis, like the sages back in India thousands of years ago, they were the scientists of the inner world. So just like, you know, we have chemists who know all the chemistry stuff, and it's like one small like wrong move can make something big happen in a wrong way. Same thing internally, like even with yoga, people don't even understand that it is a very, very sophisticated science. And just going to some yoga teacher who has spent 200 hours learning it doesn't mean they're qualified, cosmically speaking, to, you know, share.
Yeah, wow, I completely agree. Going back to like the oneness, I like the law of one. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. That was something that really like kind of catalyzed my understanding that like we all are kind of one. And I say that because it really boiled down the idea that like if you peel back the layers, like what actually am I, then you eventually like the core layer, at least like in my belief, is that we're just awareness. And when you think about that, is like that's no different than like any other being, whether it's like conscious or not. And it really is almost like difficult to see people as not part of yourself, or like at like the most united, like I don't know, the deepest layer, I guess. And that's something that I just had, it stuck with me since I had that idea a few years back. But yeah, with the community itself, I mean, I would love to, there's so much like the Rishi, like I've heard about them. I've maybe like 5 minutes of my entire life. Like there's so much out there to learn. And I don't want to force people down the same like belief path that I may have right now, because there's just so much else that I need to learn. And I would love to create the community for just knowledge sharing to be just a core concept.
100%. And another cool thing is a lot of these existed in multiple cultures without any of these people ever interacting. And that really makes you think like how did that happen? Why did that happen? Why did so many people have such similar belief systems but live so far away? And you see that in a lot of different areas, whether it be, I mean, like the pyramids is another thing, and that's a whole different story. And I'll stick to spirituality right now. But it's crazy how these all exist in multiple cultures, but they never really interact with each other. And, you know, going back to the whole oneness aspect, like this is just, you know, this is an experience. And I think also talking about you, or so what you said, is that it's a lot of a spectrum. It's not just like black or white. There's a spectrum to everything. And there's just so much knowledge that isn't being shared, but there just needs to be a platform in which people can share it and openly share without being ridiculed or without anyone, you know, shutting you down. There just needs to be this area where you can just safely say whatever you believe, and then other people can like either dismiss it and say like, I'm not interested in that, or they could just, you know, want to learn more and want to like maybe make the improvement or make the effort to make that part of their life.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, it's important that we don't act violently and deny other people. You know, even when there's hate, we just don't engage with it. You know, when there's any form of violence, we just don't engage with it. Like, seriously, people want to entertain it for some reason. They want to explain, or they feel like it's their duty to kind of entertain that you know, sort of violence. But in truth, like something my guru has said is, you know, like God doesn't exist. There's not just one God. God is oneness, that experience. You know, like what you were saying, Andrew, like at the core, it's awareness. Exactly. That's just consciousness, you know. That's the one thing that's never changed. You look at your body, it's changed. You got millions of cells dying every second, a million more being born every second. The mind is constantly new words in and out. But that witness, that eternal witness, it's eternal. You know, I've even brought this up to many people who are like, oh no, I'm atheist. It's like, I've asked many of those atheists what happens after we die, and a lot of them, they're like, oh, it's just blank, or it's empty, or it's just black. And it's like, okay, so you have to be aware that that's happening to even cognize, you have to be aware that there's emptiness or black or void or something. Like, yeah. Consciousness is like space or a paper or a blank canvas where everything else is put on top of it. So I 100% agree with both of you.
Yeah, and like hearing just like these ideas, it's hard to think of like whether I would have came to the same level of like understanding without the internet. And so now with like the metaverse coming in, like I think spirituality, like I think it thrived on the internet. Like there's just a niche of people, that's a pretty large group of people, were able to like share their messages to one another. And it made me think that like for some reason I had this like pessimistic view that, oh, people are going to become so obsessed with the virtual reality that they're going to just want to play video games and not really care about spirituality, like maintaining that connection, at least like to their physical bodies. But the more I'm talking to people, like I guess yourself, the more I'm coming to realize, like, I feel like it's stronger than anything, any kind of like sensory just distraction. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Like, do you think spirituality, without us playing a part in that, do you think it's going to thrive or change at all with the metaverse?
I would say that, because I know what my guru's doing and the work he's doing, and I can tell you spirituality can just thrive just on his work alone. But when it comes to the metaverse, I feel like us providing a platform is key. You know, like, one of the reasons why I even wanted to kind of create this project that I was working on was there are going to be people who get sucked into VR. There's going to be people who just live in like tin cans, you know, but they have this giant mansion in virtual reality where they spent all their money on their life savings, and, you know, they neglect their body and all that stuff. I wanted to do something that was the complete opposite. I want people to go in, learn the most fundamental things about life, go out of VR and feel so empowered that any desire, any like thing that they have in mind, where it's not just this selfish desire of how can I fulfill my sensual pleasures, but something that's actually contributing or even aiding in their life, even, you know, money, you know, even getting a Lamborghini, for example, you know, it's not anything that's life negative.
Yeah,
I want people to go in, come out just empowered.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think Alex and I, like, we had a focus more like on their time spent within the metaverse. And so I wanted to like think of a way to actually incentivize people to take care of themselves. So like, I'm imagining in the metaverse, maybe like you're on this like stationary treadmill. So you are actually kind of like walking. And let's say like you're like, we wanted to base it off of the chakra system. You're familiar with the chakra system, I'm assuming. Is that correct? Okay.
So just a kind of, I am Hindu. So when it comes to that, like, my guru talks heavily on the chakras and stuff like that. And even today, he gave a webinar on the different lokas or dimensions, which are corresponded to each of the chakras.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it was just like one idea that we were thinking of, like, just because I have like looked into it fairly like in depth, I'd say. And like for the root chakra, for example, let's say like we in the metaverse created this like jungle, and like on that jungle, you're kind of just like grounding in nature in the metaverse. And so with that, like your NFT aura, like let's say like around like the root chakra, that would start to glow, and like that would evolve your NFT that you can then sell for money, or you can just keep it and kind of flex it for clout. And so we wanted to do that based on like every single chakra. So I was imagining like we had a building with like 7 floors, and like each one corresponds to like its own chakra, and you can almost make it like a mini game or an actual like full-on adventure that you have to, like, in order to accomplish it and like earn your NFT upgrade, you actually have to learn, like demonstrate these lessons according to each chakra. So maybe for the throat chakra, for example, in order to like beat the boss, you have to like stand up for yourself, and you have to like speak your truth even when you're like in a situation where it may not feel right. And just things like that, where you can just kind of like make it so appealing to people that they want to come and play, but it's actually improving themselves, whether they're in VR or not.
That's very interesting. I'm gonna have to sit down and really think about that. And I will definitely add a lot more to that for sure, because I really like where you're going with that. And I do even recently, like the other night, because they have like play to earn and all this other stuff, something new came to me. Implementing it is going to be quite interesting, because we're going to need like a team of people to, you know, watch the community. And I don't feel comfortable sharing it just because it's like, you know, kind of just out there, and, you know, I don't know where we stand on if there is a chance that I can be a part of the team or anything like that. But if that chance is there, I can definitely share it, because I feel like this will add so much into allowing people to earn in a way that is very, very interesting, on top of, you know, the play to earn, like you're saying, when it comes to the chakras. I feel like that's a really great approach to things, and I like how you're kind of representing that. And I can definitely share a lot of stuff on the chakra systems that's like homework, I guess, where it's really going into things. But making a way where it's like tracked, like, because I see how, you know, like you said about the jungle and stuff like that, you know, it's like it would be better if people were actually in real life. If we can find something that can also track real life, that would be amazing. I know there was a NFT collection, I forgot what their name was, but something to do with kangaroos. Their whole thing was experience to earn, and it was all about you experience something in the real life, in real world, and you can also earn there too. I'm not sure how they're approaching that. I just know when I was in one of the Twitter spaces, they mentioned that, and that's something that it's like, if we can find a way where it's not just metaverse, where it's even in real life that people can actually earn, it'll be really beneficial to kind of developing people, not just in the metaverse and also benefiting them that way, but just running full speed into life itself.
Yeah, no, I definitely, like, a big inspiration was like after the gym, I would always just walk around this empty parking lot, just like do some like self-talk and kind of bring my subconscious mind to the surface. And then that gym closed with COVID, and I had to like relocate gyms. And now this one's in such a busy area, and there's not a good spot, and it's freezing cold outside. And overall, like, I'm just finding myself not making time in my schedule to do it, and I feel worse. And so ultimately, I would love to have something like that available in the metaverse. That's like a second option, but I don't want it to be at the point where maybe it's summertime and I actually do have an amazing spot, or I could find an amazing spot to do it like my real life, but I'm just like not even giving that a thought because I can just escape to the metaverse because it's so awesome. And so I think there's a fine line to walk between all of that. And I think maybe this experience to earn would make it so you're almost like rewarded more for doing it in person versus the metaverse or something like that.
Yeah. The difficulty is really trying to get people to not become so attached to the metaverse and to the whole digital world. That's definitely going to be an issue and a massive obstacle that we face, especially just because of how good technology is going to be, where everything looks just as good as the real world eventually. And especially now where society is kind of in this like materialistic mindset where people like having the new iPhone or like having the new PlayStation 5 or whatever. You know, we're so materialistic that we need to figure out a way to bring people outside and to recognize that they do have some sort of responsibilities in the real world, whether it be taking care of their emotion or their physical body. There needs to be some way for them to recognize that, and without having to push that or force anyone to do it, but have them really believe in the idea that there is more to the real world than there is in the digital world when it comes to self-preservation and like enlightenment.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on what you said about, you know, games becoming more and more real, that's something I feel is important when it comes to making a metaverse, is keeping the feeling of I'm in a video game.
Yeah.
We don't, like, personally, like with the visions I had in what I wanted to work towards is, you know, I don't want someone to go in and then forget they're in a video game. It's like if you go and play some of the early games, like from the early 2000s, I'm sure you both grew up on video games. It's like, even as kids, we thought these graphics are amazing, but at the same time, we still felt we're playing video games, not real life. And I feel that's very, very important to kind of have that good balance where it's like, it's not too cartoony, but it's not too realistic, where you can actually go in and it's something that is very eye appealing, but it's not like ultra 8K or 16K resolution where you're just like, oh, let me fall asleep and then wake up and you're like, where am I?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, hearing you describe that, I mean, immediately thought about like lucid dreaming, where you kind of like are able to recognize that you're in a dream. And it seems like we almost would need to like every like 15 minutes, like a big broadcast, like this is a video game, you guys, this is not real. There's way more outside than this. But I don't know. I mean, I really see technology improving to the point where it is almost indistinguishable, which is, man, like who knows what's gonna even happen from there? You know, like what's the step above that? That's where I'm not even too sure. But regardless, I think this is going to take at least enough time for us to think about it in the moment and to kind of set up and like reiterate what works and what doesn't to avoid like that dystopian idea where we're just like really kind of seeing, like watching our lives evaporate, like at least our IRL lives. But man, things are happening fast though. Like at least learning about Web3 and like the DAOs and NFT space, like I've never seen something like explode, at least with innovation. Like we learned about DAOs in one day, and now there's like 15 different tools that you can use to build upon each one. I'm like, when did they start all this? And it was like 4 years ago. Like how did this just fly under the radar? It's just crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And God, you know, it's something that hit me many times. I don't do psychedelics anymore, but a few years back when I was kind of in all of that, you know, doing shrooms and DMT and experimenting with those, the same kind of central theme kept coming up initially when I started tripping, which was our technology has finally caught up to what we've been saying for thousands of years. This is a holographic reality. And it, you know, even scientists came and said 99.999% of what we know is just space. The rest is matter. We feel this is solid, but in reality it's not. And you know, VR, like when it gets to a certain point, I feel it's gonna give a lot of people that breakthrough. It's gonna make enlightenment very easy to conceptualize and be like, look, you put on this headset, you see how this is just like real life, you experience very similar things. There's going to be a lot of people who fall deeper into lower levels of consciousness, but there's going to be a lot of people who take the headset off and go, okay, now how do I take this headset off? And that's what, like, for me, with kind of the project I'm working on, or I don't even know at this point, but the vision that I have is to be able to provide something where people can put on a headset and then learn how to take this headset off, where they can actually close their eyes, go into a meditative space and experience the higher dimensions, the higher realities. And kind of going back to what I said earlier, the webinar my guru gave today was essentially experiencing those higher dimensions. And it's very, very crazy, because when an enlightened being shares, they're not sharing from their head, they're sharing from their heart. So what that means is they're giving the direct experience. When an enlightened being does that, it's like, here's the experience. With us, we're kind of sharing things from our mind back and forth. But with an enlightened being, it's like, here's this experience. And when he was talking and sharing and going into all of these things, it's like, I was able to have all these experiences of these different dimensions, and everyone else in the chat and what they're sharing was basically the same thing. And it's really interesting how we can have these different dimensions that we're unaware of. So there's these spiritual sciences that are prominent within all of our spiritual and ancient cultures. And, you know, if we're able to give a space to revive the authentic like teachings with their full context, it's going to give people that space where they can go in. And one of the more important things that my guru has said is knowledge itself is enough, the cognitions, because it is the cognitive reality that creates the subjective reality. The subjective reality is what we experience, is our life. So the cognitions we cherish, a lot of times we cherish a lot of powerless cognitions, which lead to self-doubt, self-hatred, and self-denial. And those are like the three roots to our suffering. And, you know, another thing is that whenever this diluted idea of separateness comes into us in our inner space, then that's when this brain fog comes in, or this fog in general called mind. And we get drugged with delusion, because separateness is just a delusion. So when we're able to kind of realize that, oh, I'm alive within all bodies, because consciousness is that feeling that I am alive. Like the highest state of consciousness is that being fully grounded in that feeling. And no matter where you look, even the inanimate objects, if you connect with them, you realize the atoms that are making that up are alive. They're vibrating. And it's something people don't really think about. It's like, we think all these things around us are dead, but they're not. And, you know, being able to create a system, a DAO, like you guys have already done, and really work on it and make something that is just truly amazing, that is going to last for many, many years, because I feel the Spiritual DAO, you know, just joining in a few days ago, talking with you guys, just seeing how the whole Discord setup and all of that, it's like, this is going to be the new Facebook. This is going to be the new, like, you know, the new social media. It's like, and another thing, I just remembered this. My guru has even said that the next influencers, the people that are really going to be, you know, the people standing up, are going to be all the people who can meditate and lead other people to bliss. The people like Logan Paul, the people like all these SoundCloud rappers, their influence is just going to plummet because there is no relevancy in the world. Right now, there's relevancy because everyone wants to live that mediocre middle class life, which even these rich people, these rich rappers, they're still living that mediocre middle class life, doing the same boring stuff, buying all this expensive things, and just, you know, not even being blissful. So many celebrities, so many rich people, they experience depression, anxiety, and I feel like we get caught up in what's causing it, that we forget to recognize and acknowledge that, look, I've been sad before, you've been sad before. We shouldn't sit here and argue back and forth on why we're sad and try to be like, my way, the reason for me being sad is like, it's my trophy's bigger. You know, we shouldn't be doing that, and just acknowledge, like, I know what you're feeling. I felt that same emotion. And really being able to give a space where people can talk and discuss and have that freedom, that feeling of, no matter where I go, whether it's in the metaverses or in real life, I'm home.
Yeah, wow. It's awesome that you bring up the bliss, because and also like speaking from the heart, because my initial idea about like actually creating this, and honestly all of my past like ideas that have been really like meaningful in my life, they all came from me just being out in nature alone and just speaking. I call it from the subconscious, where I'm not actually thinking about what I'm saying. I'm literally just like being like an audience member to what is actually coming out of my mouth. And with that, I just come to this reasoning that like, this is something that needs to be done for this, like this, that, and the other. And it just feels so amazing. And that's ultimately like what I wanted to get from the Spiritual DAO, is like, this is my job that feels like play, and doing this allows me to spend more time out in nature when I'm coming up with more of these ideas. And by actually creating the DAO and allowing people to like come to these same understandings, and just like the financial ability to do whatever, I guess, that activity is for them, that's my ultimate goal for this.
Yeah, I like that. I do want to say something. When you said about being like the audience, you know, there's something that hit me like a few months ago, and the moment this landed in me, I was laughing for minutes on end, because it's just like, wow. And it's like a analogy, metaphor, whatever you want to you know, call it, but how I viewed it is like I was saying, even you agree, it's like at the core we are just this witness, this awareness. And it's like, for me, how I was able to kind of put that in a word, or in a way that kind of makes sense to most people, is it's like, okay, we're sitting in the very back row of a movie theater, just absorb in you know, the pre-movie advertisements. We're not worried about if what's coming up next, or not really focused on anything else. We're just absorbing it 100%. And then someone stands up directly in front of us, and they're just talking on their phone. And they're just talking and talking and talking, and we're just still just watching. We, rather than being absorbed in just the ads, we're absorbed in that person now. We're just focused on that person. There's no kind of anything going on inside of us. It's just boom, full awareness. And then, you know, for me, how I like conceptualize that was, the person standing up and talking is just our mind. It's just that inner chatter. You know, it's like that inner chatter, like, it's unnecessary. Thinking, the mind is just a small function of the brain, like walking. At any moment we can stop, but it's because we have our blind spots that cause us to keep going on and on and on and on. And you know, we don't realize that we are that awareness. We get so absorbed in the person standing up and talking that we're just like, this is me. So when we're like, oh, if that person sits down and stops talking, I'm dead. And you know, that's ego death when the person actually does sit down.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That was heavy.
No, I definitely. So would you say that the actual mind itself is detached from the awareness, or do you think it's just another like let's say awareness is the tree, it's just another branch that's like maybe prickly ears, it's causing the most like kind of distraction for yourself?
The awareness is the open sky, and the mind are all the clouds.
Yeah.
All the labels, all the thoughts, all the I'm male, I'm female,
yeah,
I'm American, just clouds.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to help people realize. Stop looking at the clouds and look at the sky, because that's what we all are. You know, even with some of my friends who like, you know, I've been friends with them for countless years since like basically childhood. I'd mess around with them so much because it's like they'd be talking about things, and I'm like, when they use the word I use the same thing. You know, the same source that your I comes from is the same source that my I comes from. So when they're talking about something, it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And they're like, what do you mean I'm not talking about you? And I'm like, yeah, I know you're not talking about you. I'm talking about me. And it's just stuff like that where it's like I was saying earlier about the me and me is also the me and you, which is me and the cosmos. Or the you and the you is the you and me, which is the you and the cosmos. You know, the you is the feminine aspect and the me is the masculine aspect, because like with Kundalini Shakti, that's the divine feminine. The enlightenment energy is feminine. So that's why all these enlightened beings, even Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, they have very feminine qualities to them, which is that nurturing, very loving, compassionate energy. And when we're actually able to tap into the Kundalini energy, it's like things are dancing across the awareness. The awareness is just this blank emptiness. It's like a blank page. And Kundalini Shakti is like all the words or the painting, you know, the brush strokes. That energy is what gives a face and allows us to recognize that there is the consciousness there. Because it's through that kind of, it's like with depression, for example. We go through that, and once we kind of get to a certain point, we can transcend it. We're like, okay, I'm done with all the bad, you know, and then we go to the good. We experience all the happy, and then we're like, okay, done with all that. You transcend both, and you're like in this space of, okay, now whatever I kind of wanted to go about doing, I'm just beyond good and bad. You know, I'm good. I'm beyond the labeling of what's truly good and bad. It's just kind of all auspicious. It's, you know, good things can be good things can be bad, you know, it just depends on how you view it. But when we kind of get back to we are consciousness, you know, it's like, oh, there we go, we're seeing reality for as it is rather than just this filter we're putting on, and that filter is just us, that mind, all the labels.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's a powerful way of ending this.
Yeah.
We definitely have some more conversations.
It's not. We're gonna go through a little meditation.
Sure. Yeah, I'm down.
Or breath work, whatever you want to call it. So we'll do 3 rounds. You get your right hand like this. So you put your first 2 fingers down. You're gonna use your thumb, put it on your right nostril. Okay, now switch, put your ring finger on your left nostril. Okay, that's how you do this. Now what you're gonna do is I'll explain it first, but you're gonna inhale as much as possible through the left nostril, and then you're gonna block. You're not gonna use these, you're gonna use just the ring finger and the thumb for blocking.
Okay.
Okay? And then once you breathe in and you're like, okay, I can't hold anymore, you're not gonna breathe out. You're actually gonna release your thumb and then breathe in as much as you can through the right side. And then again, block. And when you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore, you're gonna release both and try to get any air. You're probably gonna get like no air in because you already kind of filled yourself up.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna do that and then hold it for as long as you can. And then when you're done, when you're like, okay, I need to let go, you release your ring finger and you breathe out through your left nostril.
All right, can we? I might need to be guided on this a little bit.
I'll just watch you as you do it.
Yeah.
Trust. I'll walk you guys through it. But what you do, again, your right thumb, you're gonna always start with your right thumb on your right nostril. And then you're gonna breathe in as deep as possible through your left nostril. And when you're done, you're gonna pinch both. And you're gonna be like, okay, I can't breathe anymore. Release your right thumb and breathe in again. right thumb, and then just inhale. And then again, block. When you can't do it no more, let go of both, and then breathe in through both, and then pinch again. Then when you're done, release your ring finger and breathe out through your left. So besides what that's doing on a physical, what it's doing on a physical level is, for one, through all of our traumas, even the heart, throat, everything this whole kind of upper part of our body is really blocked. And it's through traumas emotionally and physically that our spine, even, sitting at a desk or looking at our cell phone, our posture gets out of alignment. The whole purpose of yoga is to align our spine to the cosmic geometry. And when we're doing that, it actually matures our thinking. So we're allowing all of the oxygen to kind of, like, we might experience a lot of like shaking or tremors or even sweating while we're doing this, because our body's kind of it's readjusting itself. It's like filling it back up and going, okay, we need you to get back into place. But that is one of the most powerful breath works or breathings we can ever do. I forgot the actual Sanskrit name for it, but for thousands of enlightened beings, they've tried it. They said this is the most powerful thing. And even Shiva, when he revealed it, he said this that technique is threefold cities, which I'm not sure if you're aware of cities, but they're the yogic powers. But in truth, cities are meaningless. You can gain them, you can lose them. What it's really about are the Shaktis. Shaktis are the third eye powers you experience and manifest through the space of oneness. So as you go into the space of enlightenment more and more and deeper, you're able to manifest more third eye Shaktis. Like, I've manifested countless. I can do Akashic readings, I can do healings, I can do body scans, I manifested gold for a few people before, which has been a really interesting experience, but it's all intense. Like I said at the start, spiritual practice, all of them are just detoxing. So anytime we have a lot of toxins in our body or in our energies, it's hard to even cognize those things, because the worst demon on the planet is forgetfulness. So yeah, just wanted to end it there. I was going to do 3 rounds of that breathing, but we can just do 1. We can definitely have another, probably host a session or something in the Discord, or record something later on where we do that for about 10 minutes.
100%. I'm down. I think next podcast I want to dive deeper into like those, you said Akashic record, like the body scan, all that. I think that's a good topic of conversation to get into.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's interesting how it works too. Like, yeah, we can leave that.
All right, Des, sounds good. All right, Alex, want to just end it here?